Bitcoin is immune from attack.
Welcome to the Crypto Show's Digital Cash Evolution right here on the Bloomberg Network. And today we are in Las Vegas at World CryptoCon, and we are graced by the presence of Vinny Lingham, who is kind of the OG here in the crypto space and has been part of a lot of different projects. And as always, online with me is my trusty co-host, Chuck. Chuck, you said you had some stuff out of Wikipedia. If you want to run that down, and then maybe we can get into the big news of what Civic is doing.
Yeah, glad to be here, Danny. Thanks for having me again. I also want to thank the Masternode Network for partially sponsoring the crypto show. Vinny Lingham, very glad to have you. You're listed on Wikipedia. I'm just going to read it straight off here. You're a South African internet entrepreneur who is the co-founder and CEO of Civic token, which we'll talk a little bit about today, which is billed as an identity protection and management startup. You're also previously the founder and CEO of Gift, which you can talk about if you like, and Yola Incorporated, and also co-founder of Silicon Cape, and an NGO based in South Africa that aims to turn Cape Town into a technology hub. Thanks for coming on. What do you want to share with us today about what's going on with the Civic token, and can you give us a brief overview for our newbie listeners out there about what the Civic token is all about from all the other thousands of tokens out there?
Sure. Glad to be here. Thanks, guys. We did the CVC token sale last year in June, so it's one of the oldest tokens out there, in crypto terms. Very broad distribution. We had 50,000 people trying to buy it. 10,000 eventually were successful, and in the past year, I think we're one of the only tokens that are still above our issuance price. And I think 40% above. So I think we did a very good job. There were no discounts. There were no, no insider trades and none of that stuff. It was a very clear, clean token sale with caps on everyone, etc. So, in the past year, we've done a lot. I think the most significant thing we've done, which kind of goes unnoticed, is we've actually split out the token utility from Civic, the company, and we actually bought the domain name identity.com. So identity.com is what is. When we put the token, we did the token sale. We did it to build a marketplace for ID verification data, and obviously, as a data privacy company, one of the things we are focused on is ensuring that your data is private. You can control your data, you own your data, and we don't store anything on our servers at Civic. We just give you the tools to enable you to effectively help us decentralize the way identity works in the world. Instead of having these credit bureaus and big institutions that hold all your data, how about a system where you store your own data and you give access to it to people you want to, and the ability to revoke it in the future, etc. So when we did the split, we basically said, okay, instead of calling it the Civic Marketplace, we're going to call it identity.com, and it'll run on the CVC tokens. And that basically means that Civic kind of is like a Red Hat or a company that builds on top of the underlying infrastructure, which is identity.com. So we'll build cool services and tools like ID codes and digital ID services, but we're using a common backend solution, being identity.com, which other companies can use as well. So competitors could use it. Anyone else in the industry who wants to, do basically attestation, buying and validation can use identity.com for that. So when we launched, we announced it about 2 months ago. I think the response has been great. People, obviously it's a fantastic domain name, and Civic is the CVC token is effectively an ID verification token that you use to, verify identity information. And we've been aggressively pursuing partnerships at Civic, which will, for the company benefit, but things like obviously partnering with Telefonica is fantastic, about 300 million users. But those users will need to get the ID verified through the ID.com platform on the back end, which will require the use of tokens. And so
I do want to get into the Telefonica and Rivet's combination, or the partnership that you're working out there. But before we go too far ahead, I want to let our listeners know, you've shared a lot of details about identity and about what the Civic token is all about. And I personally want to share with our audience that, I see identity, solving the problem as identity, as one of the biggest problems that we need to address in this crypto space. And I really want to make sure that our listeners understand that you are really tackling one of these most difficult problems And I think that the Civic token is one of the leaders in this space. Why is, from your perspective, why is identity management so important, and how does that relate to the freedoms of individuals?
Well, everyone in the crypto space has had the problem when you open up an account at a crypto exchange. You have to give over your passport information, utility bills, etc. That gets scanned in. It gets stored in some country like Philippines, where people manually are reviewing this information. Who knows what else they're doing with it? There's no guarantee that this information is being kept safe. And so when there is a data breach or a hack, your personal information gets out there, and then they can commit things like identity theft and fraud against you, take out fake mortgages, buy cars, etc., and really affect your credit record. So
I want to call out there that you said when, not if. And it's almost a guarantee. It happened with Equifax. It's happened with Facebook multiple times. Google has had hacks. Our identity is out there, right? So protecting it is important.
Well, that's the thesis behind Civic. So your data is already out there. So what's the point of trying to protect it from keeping it secret perspective? It's really about, how do you authorize usage of the data? So the method that we've developed is basically one of an attestation method. So it means that if you are the owner of a bit of information, there should be a private key signed by somebody, or at least a hash on the blockchain signed by someone who validates that you are in possession of a certain set of private keys, which when you can re-sign and produce these hashes, you can prove that you are the owner of the data, the underlying data. And so that's the system we've developed. And that really means that ownership of data means ownership of a private key, not knowledge of of a piece of data. So when you phone your bank and they want to validate who you are, they ask you things like, what's your date of birth? What is the color of your first car? Who's your best friend? All that crap, right? Anyone can know that information about you. So that doesn't prove that you are who you say you are. But to be able to sign a message with a private key, which is placed on a secure device, which was validated to be owned by the person who was verified, is a much higher bar for security than just knowledge of information.
Awesome. At Consensus, you guys were integrated into a vending machine that was selling alcohol. So they were using this to verify the age of the user that they were able to buy alcohol. Do you guys have any plans of doing this in the cannabis industry? Because there are actually vending machines out there. Trees, I believe, is one, and there's I forget the name of the other one, but that would be a great use case. Do you guys have any plans on that?
We haven't announced anything yet, but there's definitely a lot in the works in the vending machine category. So weed, pharmaceuticals, alcohol. The vending machine was a partnership we did with Budweiser. We're working on a few more type of, these are all pilots, obviously, and when we go into production, when people can start using their digital IDs to get these products legally, I think it's a step forward. Remember, people don't walk around all day going, "Hey, I need a digital ID right now." That's not like what consumers do. It's like, I need a beer, I need some weed, I need some tobacco, I need cough mixture. How do I get that quickly and easily without having to pull out a physical ID and have to go
a fecal sample or some crazy stuff like that.
Exactly. So we're actually pretty excited about the category of automated sales using the automated selling of age-verified products, because here's an example where you can use a zero-knowledge proof where the machine doesn't know anything about you, it just knows that you're over 21 and it can issue you the beer. Tobacco, etc.
You should be excited, rightly so. I mean, as you're talking, I'm realizing this could kick off a boom in the vending machine industry, because I remember when I was a child, and my dad was a smoker. He was a cigarette smoker, and he would go hunting for the vending machines where you could buy cigarettes as they were dwindling and depleting from the market, because it got to a point where you couldn't sell cigarettes from a vending machine anymore, right?
Yep.
Well, if you can verify the age, now you can. Right? Isn't that kind of the idea? So all of these would be coming back. That is really exciting.
It seems like it would be a good idea for like medical records, where you could actually hold the keys so that you would have to release your records to anyone rather than just anybody being able to get a hold of your medical records or whatever. You would have to actually sign the key before the doctor could see it.
The problem with the medical industry is obviously you have HIPAA compliance requirements, which are pretty stringent.
Yes.
And
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, so I think, as Civic, so Identity.com is going to be able to power anything. So if someone wants to build an identity company in the medical record space, use Identity.com to do the verifications and validations. And because it's separate from Civic, we encourage, and this is going to be, we're busy setting up a nonprofit foundation trust to run it. it's really meant to be more of a co-op. The more companies that will use Identity.com, the more liquidity and the more value that goes into that marketplace, and the cheaper it gets to ID verification. So the cost of verification going down unlocks new use cases. And as an example, the beer machine. You can't have a situation where you have to do a $2 verification every single time you buy a beer. That makes no sense at all. So the reusability of digital IDs means that you can, with virtually no cost, I mean, let's say we charge 20 cents versus $2. You can tack 20 cents onto the cost of a beer. You can't tack $2 onto the cost of a beer. So now use cases that previously were not possible are becoming possible by having this liquidity pool of identity data.
Well, unless you're here in Vegas, you could tack $10 on it. No one would know.
That's true. That's very true.
Cost of consuming business, I guess, out there.
Yeah.
So tell me about this Telefonica and is it Rivets?
Yeah.
RIVITS partnership? What's going on there?
No, RIVTZ or EZ.
VTZ.
Yeah. Ends with a Z, put it that way.
Okay.
So Rivets provides secure element hardware and technology to a number of players, including Telefonica. And we're working with them and Telefonica to essentially be able to store your personal data, keys, and ID information on these devices. Now, the thing about Telefonica is it's not a very well-known brand in the US, but it definitely serves a very large primarily Latin audience, where these are underbanked people as well to a large extent, and this is the case with all mobile providers worldwide. I think a lot of the mobile providers in Africa and Asia, they become the sort of gateway to commerce because people are storing airtime on their devices. And we live in a post-paid world in the US. The majority of cell phone contracts are post-paid, but in developing markets it's all prepaid. So people's phones actually where they store their money and they use that money to do things. And so I think it's pretty exciting for us because when you look at the identity world as well, the majority of people in the world who don't have identities are in the developed world. Everyone in the US has got a driver's license, right? So that's an easy one. Everyone who drives a car at least. But IDs are easy to come by in these markets, and identities in underdeveloped markets and emerging markets are a lot more expensive and difficult to get. And ID verification remotely is very difficult to do. So online commerce is affected as well. People don't have credit cards.
Okay.
So by enabling identity on these devices, you're able to turn these devices from not just a store of value type mechanism, wallet, to something a lot more. It's something which you're now able to use for a lot more things commercially than previously was possible. So enabling this many devices and having to push this much, this many users into our platform, into Identity.com, I think it's very strong vote of confidence in what we've built at Civic.
So one thing I want to clarify for our audience is that there's a certain kind of nuance here that I think often gets glazed over when we talk about identity. And maybe you can share your thoughts on this. Can you compare for me, if you would, the differences between identity, personal information, personally identifying information, and verification or validation? Like how do those three, how does the platform and the systems and the services that you provide offer the distinctions between those three things: identity, personally identifying information, and the verification or validation of the possession of that data? How does that all work from your perspective?
Well, so we work with attestation-based data only. So in other words, you can't go put in your favorite cake and ice cream and favorite flavors of whatever. It's very much, if there's a claim on your ID. So for example, if you need a blood type on your ID, we would need a medical institution to validate that the blood type is correct.
Okay, so there you have validation of personal information.
And then they would basically sign an attestation saying, okay, well, Vinny has a B positive blood type, and therefore when I give that data to another medical institution, they can check and say, okay, well, he says he's B positive, but who validated that? Okay, well, it's another medical institution that we trust, so we'll accept that. We don't have to go and verify his blood type again. So that's the sort of level of data we can get down to. I mean, it's schools as well. Like, did he go to Stanford? Did he go to Harvard? Did he go to the University of Cape Town? Where did he study? Unless there's a validation from, and in many cases, it doesn't actually have to be that organization. So, you wouldn't have to have the University of Cape Town validating it. It could be the South African government says, okay, our records show that he studied at a government school. So here you go. but as long as the person receiving the data is willing to accept that the company organization that did the attestation is legit, you can accept that data.
And
So,
what do you go on, Dan?
Kind of a question for both of you. You were working on evolution with Dash, and they're trying to achieve username, password, whatever. Would this digital identity help in facilitating that, or?
Well, I'm actually, to be honest, as a software developer, I'm kind of asking for some personal reasons too, because there are some applications, some prototype applications that I'd like to build on top of the Dash platform. And while they're providing an easy access tool by the way of the username, they're not necessarily going to provide a management system for the details of identity that you've outlined. And so in my mind, I'm actually considering some kind of a hybrid. I feel like tokens like Civic and Dash are going to work together in order to bring a more full suite of services as developers recognize opportunities.
Yeah, we've partnered with a ton of crypto companies. I mean, I think our partner list is over 100, and that's in about a year, including product development. We're accelerating right now. We're doing, 40 a quarter plus. I think this quarter we should be way above that. But the thing with identity, the username and passwords, they should be dead because that's a knowledge-based authentication method. If you know the username and you know the password, you can get access. As opposed to what you have. I have a private key which no one else has got access to. Therefore, I am Vinny. Let me in. It's the same as a lock on the door. It should not be. It should be a physical lock. If it's strong and reliable, needs a physical key. And it's kind of the same in the crypto world. You need to have a key to get into the door. And so,
well, yeah, I think that's one of the interesting additions here is that Dash is combining, just to clarify, the username with the private key, not necessarily password. So I agree, username and password should go out the door. Yeah. Maybe this is a middle way step to encourage people to adopt, the ownership of a private key of some kind.
Yeah, and with Civic logins, which we have, one of the things which I think people don't appreciate enough is the way the data is stored and transmitted versus Facebook Connect and Google and LinkedIn, whoever else. These services centralize data, and so they want to know exactly where you're using it, where you're going to, and how they share the data. Civic doesn't store data on our servers. So with us, we have a Civic Connect product which goes app to app. You can sign up for accounts. You can do it anonymously if the service allows you to, and you can have a unique identifier. They don't have to know anything about you, and there's no data that's being leaked out to these companies. You are in control of your data, and we think that's the future. It doesn't seem apparent right now how we get there, because clearly Facebook and the other guys have got huge user bases. But I think that if privacy becomes more and more important to people, and people realize that using things like OAuth, where there's always a third party in the middle, it's a privacy violation. I think we're going to see a quick move away from 3-party systems to 2-party systems.
Well, so that brings me to kind of what's going on in our media space with the recent purge of let's say, alternative voices and freedom-oriented voices that may have been advocates for privacy from such platforms like Facebook and Twitter, Google, those kinds of places. What are your thoughts on this and how this purge of freedom-minded mindset, like what effect is that going to have on this transition to a knowledge of ownership of privacy?
Look, when it comes to the freedom advocates, I mean, look, I don't have an express opinion on what the content is. I think if people want to believe, they can be. I mean, like, we don't have restriction on religion, and in most cases, I think most religion, like religious stuff, is kind of, I'm not the biggest fan of religious texts. I think all the religions have got amazing insights and wisdom in them combined. I'd love to put them all into one religion so we can get along. Let's all get along, but we can't. So, it's more about, like, people choose to believe, like, the same way, like, I don't label myself as a Democrat or Republican. I'm registered as an independent voter. I'm
a SpongeBob-itarian.
Or libertarian, because I don't like labels. I think labels are bad. It's like, if you're a Democrat, then you believe all these things collectively. It's like this collectivism sort of approach to the world.
It's a cult.
Yeah,
it's a cult.
And so that's so when it comes to the free speech thing and how these platforms control, the moment you start getting people into labels and say these are Alex Jones supporters and they believe everything Alex Jones says, or like this is not
Drink my Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So I think that with most pieces of information which you read or consume, you read a book. It could be a very factual book, but there could be many inconsistencies in the text. So it doesn't mean the book's bad. It means that it's up to you to figure out what is wrong, what is correct. Like even science books. I mean, over time, science has been proven to be wrong. Like what we believed about the world of physics 20, 50, 100 years ago changes. So my point is, it's up to the reader to assess. It's not up to the platform to censor. People need to make their own decisions. And look, it just happens that some people are better at convincing others about their view of the world, and people want to be brainwashed. It's their choice. I have a very much a hands-off approach to this. Like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I mean, I can't stop you from believing whatever religion you want to believe in, or whatever,
well, that's certainly something I can get behind. I certainly support you with that. I do wonder, though, if you're not, so it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you may not necessarily be focused on educating. Oh, my internet may have gone weak for a minute. Sorry about the interruption there. So it sounds like you may have you're not going to focus on educating. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's not. Education is something which is very relative. I grew up in apartheid era. The education I got when I was under the apartheid government about how you could oppress blacks and Indians and people of color in South Africa and it being okay was a bad education, right?
Right.
So only when we got to democracy in 1990.
Are you saying Nazis are bad?
So everything's relative. Like when you've grown up in an oppressive regime like I have, what you're forced to believe or what you think is the truth is often, as a result of censorship and facts being hidden from you. Was it my fault as a 10-year-old kid? I thought it was okay that I couldn't go to the public beach and the pools. I was like, oh, that's just the way the world is. It's okay. It wasn't my fault. That's just the way it was, right? So when you talk about education, I hate teaching people. I hate the view that education is something which is absolute. It's very relative. I think I'd rather teach people to think as opposed to giving them, it's more important. It's more important that you teach people how to think and what critical thinking is, as opposed to this is a knowledge base which you should, consume and absorb and reflect on, and
absolutely, yeah.
So
I agree with you.
How to think is more important.
Absolutely.
This is getting way too logical. It just.
Do we need to scale it back to a little bit more stupidity?
So let's go back to content, right? Content censorship doesn't solve the underlying issue. If people had critical reasoning and thinking, they would be able to solve. They would be able to wade through the crap, the wheat from the chaff, and they would be able to absorb information which is factual, true, and correct, and use that in their lives. But censoring the content doesn't change the fact that people can't think. All you're saying is people are stupid, so we have to protect them. That's not the way you solve these problems.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I guess to bring it fully back, to bring it full circle on when it comes to privacy and how we get people to recognize the value of privacy, I'm totally in agreement. Education isn't going to be the answer. And I can certainly empathize with a little bit of ambiguity as to how you do get there, where people are ultimately valuing their personal privacy and their personal identity and their personal information enough to go through the steps of acquiring a private key on a platform like Civic. And I guess what I'm mostly interested in is how can we help? Like, if there's people out there, how do we help you spread this message? Who are you reaching out to, and what resources do we have?
Well, I mean, this is a great platform, obviously, and being on the show. But this really touches a very niche audience, the crypto people who actually understand what a private key is. You ask anyone else what's a private key, they'll give you a whole range of answers. It's a key you can use to go to private places. I don't know. They have no idea.
With Telefonica, you're getting into Latin America pretty strong, and crypto is exploding over there, especially Venezuela, Argentina, places that actually need it. I mean, it's a necessity, so they're learning cryptocurrency out of necessity, and I think it's great that.
But the average person is still for years not going to know what this is. So when you say it's a digital identity, when you say it's a way of getting a beer or getting some tobacco or getting weed, that they get. They're like, oh, it's like a digital driver's license. Cool, I want one of those. But again, without places to use it, they aren't going to care. So we can give these IDs to 270 million people on Telefonica's network, and if they cannot use it at any place to do something, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so
we do have to close the loop.
I need to be able to show that to the cop when I get a speeding ticket for 120 in my Bitcoin Lambo.
Exactly. and I think one of the mistakes that the crypto industry is making as a whole is we are not focusing on the use cases of crypto. We're focusing on infrastructure and trading and silly things which are not going to go mainstream. I mean, no one gives a shit if we can do 1 billion transactions per second on any crypto network.
Unless they're crypto kitties.
No, but even then, like, what's the point? I mean, let's use 1 million as an example. What's the point of doing 20 times the throughput of Visa? What's the point? Like, do we have any service here that is 20 times bigger than Visa in crypto? No. Right. So it's just intellectual orgasms. That's all it is.
Exactly. I want to touch on something. I want to touch on something really quick. I caught part of your speech. I wasn't able to catch all of it at Coin Agenda. And you think that Bitcoin may drop down to 3,000? What's your take on that?
Look,
price speculation.
I don't want to go into price speculation business again. I'm happy to give you guys my thoughts, but here's the thing, okay? If you look at last year, I had a pretty rough year in the start of the year. And when I say I had a rough year, it's like I started off the year saying, guys, I think Bitcoin's going to go through the roof, but we should temper expectations because we do not want another bubble. We do not want this thing to go to the sky. Let's go sky high. People to lose a whole bunch of money, set us into another crypto winter for a couple of more years. We just got out of one. Can everyone just calm down? And everyone's like, Vinny, you're fudding. Vinny, you're crazy. And then at 20,000, it was like, Vinny, you're an idiot. You sold all your Bitcoin, which I didn't actually do. I didn't sell all my Bitcoin. But anyway. And people they would just misinterpret everything I said. The only person that actually understands and really, one of the smartest guys on Twitter is Willy Woo. Okay, he really just understands when you say something. He understands actually word meaning really well, and he doesn't misinterpret things. And he's actually able to decipher back to people who just like many of the trolls. But what I was fearful of last year was we are going to go through this cycle where all these newbies are coming in. They've never seen a crypto winter. They've never seen a bear market, and they're going to buy it all the way up. They're going to make a lot of the insiders a lot of money, and then the whole thing's going to come crashing down, and we're going to spend years trying to revive it. And when I said that, I was the bad guy.
Yeah. I remember you saying that in a room full of people in January.
Yeah. And I was the bad guy.
It was not well received.
Exactly. And
you were saying things like pay off your debt, right? Like
exactly.
Pay off debt. Right?
Oh, I a lot of friends paid off their debt in the 15,000. Like they got a hold of me. I said, guys, they are so happy. I've got so many friends who I actually convinced them to get out at 15,000, 14,000, etc. One guy even flew up to me because he had all his keys on Bitcoins that I gave him. I bought some stuff from him, 2012 or 13, and he had it's probably at the time it was wasn't much, but then it was a 6-figure number when he came back to me last year in December, and he literally flew to me with his laptop and said, okay, how do I extract the key? Because the keys were in an old wallet, so I had to do some extraction for him and whatever else. And then because I had to split out the Bitcoin Cash from the Bitcoin, etc. So I did all that for him. And
taking the wheat from the shaft.
Yeah. So I did that for him, and he sold at 14,000, and then it pumped back up to 15. He was like, "No," I'm like, "Just relax." And now he's the happiest guy in the world because and then another friend who paid off his house as well. But the point is when I think at 3,000 or 2,800, I kind of capitulated and said, okay, well, guess we're gonna have to go through another bubble. Let's go for it, guys. No one wants to listen. I had that tweet. And it was like, Bitcoin needs booms and busts to win because that's just the only way we're going to learn. And so then I kind of said, okay, fine, let's watch this. Let's see how big this thing gets. Let's pump it. The phrase at PS Summit was "pump it, bitch." Let's see.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah. Let's just see how high this thing goes before it pops. And thankfully, obviously, I think I even tweeted out the whole Isaac Newton South Sea bubble thing. Everyone says, Vinny, when are you getting back in? When are you back in? And I'm like, guys, here's what happened to Isaac Newton. Bubble, okay? went up, and he sold, and then he watched it all rise, and he got back into the top, and he basically went bankrupt. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I've learned from Isaac Newton at least, and so I didn't get back in at high prices clearly. But the point is, if you ask people, and again, I know that I'm a bit of a polarizing figure in crypto, so I get that. But if you ask people today, why do you hate Vinny? What do they say to you?
Oh, any number of things. He's a shill. He's a pumper. You're a pumper, right? Isn't that one of the big things?
What do I pump?
I've
what,
never
besides
seen
Bitcoin?
I don't pump anything.
Yeah.
What do I pump?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just basing.
No, I know. Like, if I get asked a question, I'll give an opinion. I don't go on Twitter and say, "Hey, buy this coin or get this."
That's true. Yeah, no, I've been, and I've seen some of those Twitter wars too. I'm like, Vinny's not like pumping anything here. Why are you accusing him?
I give information about that. Everything I post is always factual. I never ever give price. Like when Bitcoin's different because it's not like Bitcoin's Bitcoin, but I don't pump or show anything. And when I see cool technology like Filecoin, I invested in the company in 2014. I was promoting it back then, saying, "Hey, I'm an angel investor. I invest over 100 companies. I'm happy to go and tell people what I invest in and endorse the companies I invest in, etc." So, but if you ask me why they don't like me, they go because he predicted a bubble.
Nice. Would you tell our audience if you were a Dash Masternode owner?
I did look at it, by the way. After Peer Summit, I was contemplating it. But at that point, I was not convinced on the market and the crypto prices. And
that was the top.
Yeah. And I was like, this is not going to last. And I actually just kind of stepped back for a while and watched. I actually cashed out a lot of stuff. And I was just like, I'm going to sit and watch this whole thing. The pain come in. And obviously, I'm a general partner in Multicoin Capital. So I have to be very careful about what I say online. I don't want to, we don't. We have a very strict trading policy as well, and so Multicoin's actually been probably the top performing hedge fund this year in crypto. Because we very very smartly did not have outsized exposure at the peak, and we didn't get back in at 10 or 12,000 like everyone else was trying to do. Because I've been through this so many times, and I told my partners, I sat down with them and I said, guys, just wait. And now we're at 6,000 ish. The fundamentals of the market, and again, I've had many talks about this. I'm happy to repost some podcasts about it. But I've explained how the market fundamentals cannot support an industry this size with the current flows of fiat. It's like the short version is there's about $1 billion in fiat required every month for the current crypto industry to function. We look at all these companies don't make profits. All these projects are not profitable, and so we're looking for like a point of equilibrium where the capital inflows and the capital outflows are in stasis. It appears to be in stasis around 6,000, so it feels like it's bottomed out. But the analysis and assessment that I've done around this is that people are not willing to sell crypto at these prices unless they absolutely have to. So what they're doing is they're digging into their fiat reserves. So companies who were selling at the top and have gotten millions of dollars in the bank, they're basically digging into the cash balance every month. They're not selling the fiat. My guess is that in the next 6 to 12 months, again, the bear market, I think, will continue for a while. Those fiat reserves get drained, and then you have to sell crypto. And then, if you look at the top wallets for the crypto token sales, they're practically untouched recently. No one's moving those funds because Ethereum is just too low. It can't go lower, so we're going to hold it. Then we're going to figure out other ways to finance the business or dig into reserves. When the reserves dry up, and you have to sell these, the crypto that you have, that's when the market bottoms out. And the reason is that these companies there's no revenue coming in. This is a negative cash flow situation, and if you understand cash flow, you appreciate why I think we're going to be in a bear market for a bit longer.
Well, that's why I tell my friends now's the time to be earning, not don't focus so much on the downsizing or the bear market itself. Just earn. Focus on earning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a builder, so I use
Chuck and I both are like 100% our income and is in cryptocurrency. So yeah, we're feeling the pain too.
And I don't think there's much. I don't think there's much more downside than 50%. I'd be very surprised if we drop down to, call it below 2,000. That'd be kind of shocking. But I think 3,000 to 4,000 range is pretty likely. I think Willie Woo says that 4,400 is like his target. I think he's right about that being that low. I think it could go lower. I think the problem is the bottom falls out the market when there's panic, and I think you even if it's just a flash crash. The other thing about crypto recoveries and crypto markets, they never ever end with a flat recovery. It's always a V-shaped spike down to the bottom. So that's how you know it's a bottom. When it like dips down, it touches like 3,000, and then within like 2 hours it's back to 4,500 or whatever it is. Like there's a huge bounce back. We haven't seen that. Like when we hit 57 or 5,800, the bounce back wasn't big enough. It's normally about a 25% bounce back. If you look at previous recovery. So I think we're going to be in this sort of holding pattern for a while and until the bar breaks. But, you know, I was wrong about how big the bubble could get. I could be wrong about how worse this market could get as well. But, you know, people shouldn't be putting money in they can afford to lose in crypto. It's just, you know, in anything which is speculative. And that's the other thing, by the way. People like everyone looks at crypto as being, you know, or at least Bitcoin as being money. Well, it's not really money. It's very speculative. It's an investment. It can go up and down. You know, it's not a fixed unit of account yet in the world. You pay taxes on your gains, you know, and so it's not like it's not a unit of account that's usable today, maybe in the future, but this isn't. So we shouldn't kid ourselves. It's an investment.
Yeah,
it's a speculative investment.
I agree. Whenever I'm teaching my friends about crypto and money, I mean, you usually, inevitably, you have to talk about fiat currency and teach them about fiat currency if they don't know anything about fiat currency in order to really teach them the value of cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and you get into the basics of money, the medium of exchange, the store of value, and the unit of account. And I always say, in agreeing with you, unit of account is probably going to be last to the party when it comes to the money situation and crypto. We first have to, in my opinion, get it to be a medium of exchange, which also acts as a store of value, and then we can get into the unit of account. I think that, and it's going to take decades. I think.
This is a long haul. I would say maybe not decades, but at least a decade. You know, at least 7 to 10 years where we are right now. This is a long haul game, and that's the thing. Like, I'm in this for the long haul. I'll be here in 10 years' time. You know, a lot of tourists are going to be gone in the next year because there's no money left. I mean, like literally, like you ask you why should the price of a crypto go up? It's like because everyone else is buying it. Is the general answer. You know, we got to get past the point where it moves because of you know, herd mentality and moves with its fundamentals. So I'm looking for more cryptos that have fundamentals that can drive price upwards. Usage is the key one, and most cryptos don't have much usage. So, you know, that's why we're focusing on, you know, deals and practical, you know, applications of identity coins and making sure the transaction volume continues to build.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to have to follow up with you, Vinny, when I get out to Hawaii. I want to make a crypto presence out there, and I want to shift around the laws of Hawaii because it's not a very crypto-friendly state right now. But I can foresee a time where we're making vending machine installations and OTC counter exchanges in the state at some point using Civic token identities. So let's plan on touching base, you know, in the future and see how this space develops, huh? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All righty.
Good being here.